Now, from Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
All right, welcome in, everybody, to a midweek edition of Sports Daily. Paul, we are, about 26 or so hours from the start of the NCAA tournament. So excited for it. We'll get you through all the latest. Jacob Albracht here alongside Paul Savage. We'll see if we can get Tommy in a little bit. But Paul's holding things down for us today. Jad Chambers is producing for us on the other end of the KFH hotline. So we will have plenty to get to today. We have that hotline back open and ready for you. We've had a couple of technical issues, so if you want to chime in on the NCAA tournament, if you've got a dark horse, a Cinderella, we all need to be betting here. We want you to let us know, 869-1240. We'll keep that open. We'll give away some HTOT and coffee before the end of the show today. Lots of fun stuff coming for you. Paul, good morning. How are you?
I am doing fine on the cusp of this big tournament, or as I like to refer to it, a national holiday. You know, Kathy Buss used to work here. She's a wonderful, wonderful lady. All the years that I've known her, right out of this office, she always took Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday off. Every year that I was ever here at this station, which has been for a long, long time, she'd always take it off. She'd go, she did nothing but watch college basketball, and I'll tell you what, she had it right. She was doing the national holiday thing before it was cool to have a national holiday. But this thing has grown and grown and grown, and even to the point where, can you believe I actually watched some of the two play-in games yesterday? I mean,
well, sure. Look,
well,
I bought in. They have
it.
Done a good job of making at least one of those games each night featuring big-time programs or programs that we know a lot about. And we'll get to that because one of those games last night was unfortunate. So we'll get into that. But, yeah, look, they've done a good job. It's no longer just 16s and 15s playing in those games. You have a little bit of that. But, you also get big-time programs and bubble teams and teams that can make a run. There's a reason we see these teams playing in these games, especially when you look at, not the 16s or anything like that, but the other games. Like, you see those teams make runs. And I've got the winner of tonight's Boise State, Colorado game, Paul, making a run to the Sweet 16, just FYI in my bracket, which is nearing its final stages of completion. I don't know where you are on yours. I guess that opens things up and leads us into where we need to start today. I have been waiting to finalize my bracket because I've been waiting to get an update on the health of the KU roster. And we had that update about 6 o'clock last night. And we've talked ad nauseum early this week about how interesting this is for KU because they have bad matchups stylistically in the opening 2 rounds. But then you kind of like their matchups as they make their way further through the bracket if they're healthy. We learned from Bill Self as he gets off the bus yesterday. So a quick aside, Bill Self is always very accommodating, at least in my experience, to the media. And so always historically as KU arrives and they get off the bus, those media folks who've been able to make it out at the same time, he always takes time to talk to everybody. Basically, it's an appreciation to some degree of making the trip. So they hop off the bus and he makes just a few minutes to give everybody what they need right there in their opening content. So yesterday he does his scrum and we get the big update. We don't have to wait till today, to get the news on the injury front for KU. And we get the news that Hunter Dickinson looks good, should be ready to go. And then we get the news that Kevin McCullough's not going to play in the NCAA tournament at all. And I don't know if people have had a chance to hear Bill Self say these things versus just read the text of them. So what happened for me, I was right on set. I was waiting to go out and do the 6 o'clock sports last night. In the break before, I get a bunch of messages and calls. McCullers out. And so I quickly, adjusted things and sort of made my way through there with that news just breaking. At that point, I had just read what Bill Self said about it, which was that McCuller was out. Then later, after the dust settled on that, somebody sent me the actual audio of Bill Self saying it. And I got to tell you, and this is just like, there's no, like research basis, or I haven't heard this firsthand or anything. Bill Self seemed kind of peeved when he was talking about McCuller. He did not seem happy about it. Basically saying he hasn't practiced in 6 weeks. He just says he's not going to be able to go. He seemed annoyed at the situation. Now, that could be me reading too much into it and buying into a lot of the rumors a lot of people have put out there about McCuller not
wanting to, risk NBA status or do things like that. But he's not going to play, Paul. And we've talked about it a lot. And both of the games that they potentially play in the opening weekend, really, no matter who they play, we know Samford. We've talked a lot about Samford. They shoot the three. They like to run it. They like to keep the pace up, all those things. And then whether it's McNeese or Gonzaga in the second game, it's sort of the same thing. I think KU is going to have a hard time making it out of the opening weekend, Paul. And certainly without McCuller, you don't like their chances to make some sort of deep run in this tournament. But it's really disappointing. And it's a big opportunity for somebody on the roster to step up. I'm not saying KU's not going to, they need McCuller badly on this team, because the things they struggle with are things he can provide to the team. Now, without him, it's going to be difficult. I suppose glass half full is, Paul, it's not like this is a sudden and jarring development. They haven't had McCuller a ton down the stretch anyway, so they're used to it at least. But boy, that's just a devastating blow to any chance they had at making any kind of run this year.
Well, you're reading a little more into Bill Self than I read into the interview.
Did you hear him talk about it?
Of course I did. I'm not. To me, it was a little more matter of fact when it came to McCuller. It's like, well, we haven't. I just didn't. My read into it is we haven't had him. We thought we probably won't have him, and that's just the way it goes.
He thought the last time we heard from him, though, before the Big 12 tournament, he thought he'd be ready to go.
Well,
in the NCAA tournament.
But I'm just saying what I read into it was sort of a matter of fact that this is a young man who can't play, hasn't played. And by the way, he quoted 6 weeks. I believe that was the number. Was it 6 weeks? I believe it was 6 weeks that Kevin hasn't played in 6 weeks.
Hasn't practiced.
Practiced.
He's
That's right.
Played, but he hasn't practiced.
Yeah, but he hadn't practiced. Still, and he went into pretty good detail. The knee is bothering him. The knee is still not healthy. He checked with Kevin. Kevin said, "I can't go on this knee. It's still not ready to go, coach. As much as I'm sure he wants to go, because everybody, you go to a place like the University of Kansas, and part of the reason you go is for the NCAA championship opportunities, because you're going to, you're going to get an invite, and you go play and you try to win a national championship. That's just part of the reason why you go to the University of Kansas. What I thought was more interesting was how little was said about Hunter Dickinson. There was the obligatory, he's better, and I don't even remember. I don't know that he even said anything about practice, how much time he's gotten on the court, whether he can, and of course with his shoulder, there's always the thing, you're lifting your hands above your heads a lot. You're going to be banging, and in the position that he is, you're going to knock around a little bit on rebounds and box out, and you got to be a little more physical. And I'm more curious at this point about Hunter Dickinson, just how effective he's going to be, than I am right now with regards to Kevin McCuller. I'm more interested in Hunter Dickinson. That's a big difference maker. If he's not going,
you think Hunter Dickinson? That's a good question. Which of those two players, if you could only have one, would you rather have? That is a fascinating,
good question.
Idea.
I got to think about it. Oh my gosh, I can't give you a snap answer.
It's a little bit multi-layered.
It is.
Dickinson. If Dickinson's playing, you would think he's closer to 100% health than if McCullum's
Well, that is
playing.
true, but how much?
So that has to go into it. But if we just took it as simply as you can, like, either player would be healthy enough to play and you could only have one, which one would you take?
Oh,
that's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, Paul, I think it sort of depends on who you're playing. So if you ask me that question in regards to these opening 2 games, I would tell you that I think Kevin McCullough may be more impactful. If you told me after these 2, when it's potentially a game against Tennessee or Purdue, I'd probably say the other way. I'd probably say you'd want Dickinson out there. So, and that's always been what's so interesting about KU's path here, is that you kind of like their matchups if they can get through these first 2. But it is going to be very difficult to get through these first matchups with your best 3-point defender and your best 3-point shooter out.
Right.
McCullough does so much on both sides of the floor.
Yep.
Trying to find it. And look, again, I don't want to like oversell Samford for people. Samford's really good for the mid-majors. They're one of the better mid-majors in this tournament, right? I pointed out yesterday, there are 19 other teams in this tournament based on KenPom ranked lower than Samford. So I just look, it's not that they're better than KU, but they're good. They're actually a good team. It's the same team though that lost, Paul, by 50 plus to Purdue to open the year. So, should KU beat Samford without Kevin McCullough? Yeah, they probably should. But boy, in the tournament, we know how 3-point shooting can kill you. I mean, Kansas knows as well as any team. And now you've lost your best 3-point defender. You've lost your best 3-point shooter. And that's what gets it so tough. Later in the tournament, it'll be interesting. And somebody's got a big opportunity here, Paul, whether it's one of the freshmen, whether it's Nick Timberlake, which I think is the most likely candidate to try. But we're going to have to see stuff from, that group that we haven't seen all year, pretty much.
Right.
And I suppose, to go back to that original question of McCullough or Dickinson, who would you rather have? Dickinson's probably the answer, just because he's been, this injury thing for him is new. And so you just know he's able to go. I assume he's going to be full strength the rest of the way. If KU is going to beat these teams that like to run it and do all these things, Dickinson's going to have to dominate, because it's a clear advantage for KU to have him down low. So, I mean, you can look at it that way too, but I'm worried, and I can't take them on the run I think they're capable of, because it's just too risky with McCullough out in these early games.
Right.
Just too risky for me.
Well, and here's the thing about the University of Kansas and the situation they're in. They couldn't have gotten 2 worse teams to, face in the opening 2 rounds on the first weekend of this
Probably
tournament.
not.
McNeese.
Yeah.
Hey.
But McNeese has to beat Gonzaga still. Like, everyone wants to put McNeese in there. And full disclosure, I'm putting McNeese into the Sweet 16. Just
not a problem. I have no problem with that.
They still have to beat Gonzaga to even get a chance to play Kansas.
They're going to beat Gonzaga. They will beat Gonzaga, from what I have gleaned over the last 2 weeks. And by the way, I was no expert on McNeese State. Don't get me wrong. I am no expert on McNeese State.
None of us have watched 1 second of McNeese basketball this year, or Samford for that matter. But we're already. That's what I love about the tournament, Paul. It's like, oh man, you guys, Grand Canyon. I'm telling you, Grand Canyon. None of us have watched a second of those teams play.
That's right.
But we're just like, yeah, that's the team. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I love that about the tournament. By the way, it's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, Coach Wade, who is the head coach at McNeese, is a big-time coach out of LSU, got in a little bit of trouble, is finding redemption in
a lot of trouble.
A lot of trouble, but he is finding redemption at McNeese State, just down the road from Baton Rouge. And it's kind of an interesting story, because let me put it this way. The success he's had in the last couple of years with McNeese is unbelievable. And he's not going to be at McNeese very much longer. And here's a guy that was looking at being on the outs with major college basketball, or being the head coach of a basketball program at the major college level. I'm predicting it right now. Here's my prediction. Louisville hires McNeese State head coach. That's coming. I can see it coming. I think it's coming. I think it's I could see it coming a mile away. Now, I might be wrong. I'm probably wrong. But
I've heard there's a lot of rumors around that Louisville job, Paul, and maybe we get into that. Just on the surface, I've heard Bob Huggins.
Yeah,
I've heard
Bob
Scott
Huggins.
Drew.
Yeah, no, I've
heard Scott Drew at Baylor.
So have I.
Which is,
I've heard
and if that happened, of course, Jerome Tang becomes a look. That Louisville job is going to be fascinating. But you bring up a good point. If Will Wade and McNeese gets on a little run. Yeah. What's also, and you got me on this side road, but it's interesting. Guys like Will Wade, who I believe off the top of my head, it was recruiting type stuff and
it was recruiting, those sorts of things. This was before NIL, by the way. What he was doing was perfectly legal right now.
Does he become now an even more attractive candidate, knowing that he was good in the space that's now legal that wasn't before? So something to keep an eye on. That's really interesting. Yeah,
who cares?
So
he can win.
If McNeese goes through, they're going to have to go through potentially Gonzaga and Kansas. Think about that for a second too. Historically, in the historical preference, imagine being a McNeese fan, because McNeese fans don't care that both of those programs are down this year. They're just thinking like, God, we beat Gonzaga and Kansas. Like, that'd be wild, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. And it would be wild because you're going up against two of the best coaches in the country, too. But so we'll see. Will Wade's going to have a chance to audition his coaching chops because he'll be going against two of the best coaches in the country, if not the two best coaches in the country of Bill Self, Mark Few.
Right. Two Hall of Fame coaches, I might add. Right. That's the quality coaching that they're going to be going against. And you're right. KU, it doesn't matter if they're up and down. If they were a 500 ball club and you go in and you've got KU in this tournament, all you know is that Wilt Chamberlain played at the University of Kansas, and there's a guy by the name of Fog Allen who's pretty famous, and you're going to go play the University of Kansas, and you're going to beat the University of Kansas, and you're going to tell your grandkids 40 years from now you beat the University of Kansas, and that's the way it's going to be. But that is the aura that KU has about, people wanting to play them. But McNeese State is still pretty darn good. I've got them in my brackets going to the next weekend. I'm not sure how I remember where I have, but listen, McNeese is good enough to get through. And by the way, I've also got Samford beating KU. And the reason I do is because things that you guys have talked about. Samford is going to run the basketball. They're going to run. They know that it's no secret to anybody in the country that has looked that the University of Kansas has somewhat of a depth problem. I think we'd all agree with that. We understand that situation. They've got a depth problem. So what do you do with a team that doesn't have any depth? You run them to death.
Run them
out. You run them up. And listen, you're not going to see in the world of Samford very many shot clocks run down. I'm making a prediction right now that there'll be no shot clock violations by Samford the whole night long, not a one, because that ball is going to go down, it's going to go up, it's going to be forced, they're going to press, they're going to do all the little cliche things, Jacob, that basketball teams do to wear out other teams, and that's to press, to run the ball, to defend hard. They're going to press everything. They're going to make every cut that the University of Kansas makes, make those players work and tire them out. It's going to be a fascinating ball game. And for me, that is much watch TV. Now, it may get out of hand. I don't know if it will, however that flows. But let me tell you, I think it has the potential for a fascinating basketball game.
It does. And look, we're gonna let's do that when we come back.
All right.
Talk about the matchup. Okay. Like, what can KU do then to be the best version of itself without Kevin McCullough? K-State.
Let's do it.
K-State gets bounced in the opening round of the NIT in a pretty entertaining game. And one of the play-in games was just a quick reminder of one of the teams that nobody wanted to see in the tournament doing exactly what they thought they would. We'll get into all of that. Want to remind you that mornings at KFH, we enjoy a great cup of coffee from Prairie Fire Coffee. Paul's got his right now.
That's right there,
fueling us up. We always appreciate their support. Lots to get to today. We've got fun stories that we might spend a little time with, including reports of Travis Kelce's tab to date the world's largest pop star. Paul's got a lot of thoughts on that. We'll have some fun today as well here on Sports Daily, the eve of the tournament. Let's go, baby. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily on KFH. All right, Coach Bill Self-Savage, you've got to alter your game plan now to Kevin McCullough being out for the tournament. Priority one for your Jayhawks would be what?
Make every possession run down to within 5 to 7 seconds of every possession that we have. Walk the ball down. I'm not even running down to get a drink of water when I'm thirsty. I'm going to walk that ball up. I'm going to utilize the time clock. I'm going to make every possession long and take time and allow my kids to be able to settle down. That's what I'm doing. I'm preserving energy because I don't have the personnel. I don't have the people. I don't have the horses. I certainly don't have the race horses that can run this race with practically anybody in the NCAA, let alone a team that wants to do that and prides itself on doing it, and that's their game, which is Samford. So, with that being said, I am milking my possessions as much as I can. Make sense?
And it does, and taking care of the ball.
And well, of course,
turnovers will kill you.
Don't want that. Obviously, I didn't
gets in and runs like that. But I say that because Samford has been one of the better teams at turning the opposition over. They haven't been very good defensively, but they have been good at turning the other team over. So KU's got to be careful of that.
And they're going to press. Sanford's going to press, by the way. I mean, they're going to try. I think. Now, I don't know if they. I don't know if they will. But I'm just saying, I would.
Aaron, to press DeJuan Harris when you have the ability to bust that press and get open looks down low for Dickinson and KJ Adams. I think if they press, they're fools. I think that would be a bad thing to do. They might try it a little bit. I think for me, Paul, it's interesting because I would sell out to absolutely dominate them on the boards. But if you do that, you may give up some transition defense the other way. Like I want to say crash the boards and really look for offensive rebounding in the game, but that could hurt you in transition the other way with a team that likes to run it. But I still think that's probably the way to go here. KU has to come in and remind Samford that they're far superior athletically. They'll have more size. They'll have more athletic size. And I think they've got to exploit that on both ends of the floor. Samford's going to get good looks at three without Kevin McCullough on the floor. You kind of just have to hope that they don't have one of those games. But if they don't, and even if they shoot it right at that 39-40% clip, you cannot give them second chance opportunities, priority one. So you have to dominate defensive rebounding. And I kind of think you start with crashing the boards and try to become this offensive rebounding juggernaut that allows Kansas to your point, extend things out and shrink that game down. I think that I really like the KU under in this scenario, the under in that game. I think we said yesterday the implied score was 80-73. Let me double check here real quick and see. I have not checked the line this morning. It really it's in fact it's gotten a little. It went a half a point with the McCullough news, from 7.5 to 7, but that over under is still at 153, which is an implied score, I believe, of 80-73. That seems too high to me, Paul. I don't think so. So one of the bets I'm going to make in the opening round here will be the KU under. I don't 80-73 seems high for the way, because I agree with you. I think KU wants to really grind this thing out and make it low scoring and try and suffocate them defensively. I agree with that. So that's probably where I would lean, because I think that's what they're going to want to do too. And it's not like a desperation thing, Paul. Again, KU just needs to come out and like they, athletically speaking, and I haven't seen a second of Samford basketball, so I say this just in theory, but I would imagine that there's a decent chance that 1 through 5, even with McCullough out, KU's more athletic than Samford. What does that mean? It means just get out there and remind them of that. And you can do that defensively, right? Get out there and defend them until, they just make it miserable on them with Harris and KJ Adams and Dickinson. Those three are still really good defenders. KJ Adams probably has to stretch it out and defend the three a little bit. Maybe. I don't know how you make up for that. I think you kind of just have to hope they don't have one of those kinds of games shooting the ball. But Paul, if they do, then what? Coach Paul Savage self.
Well,
then what do you do? Like if they're hitting threes, what is the adjustment KU can make there? And that's been the problem we know for KU this year is when other teams hit three, KU can't match them for threes. They're trading threes for twos. That's been their big Achilles heel. So knowing that Samford's really good at that, what is the counter to them shooting a high percentage? That's what I can't quite figure out. In by the way, in this game or the next game, whatever it may be, is what is KU going to be able to do if the other team is shooting the three well? I just don't know what their counter to that will be.
There's only one counter that I'm aware of, and that's extend the 3-point defense. I mean, you've got to extend.
But what I'm saying is, right. But what I'm saying is, if they're hitting threes, which is possible, right? Even no matter what you do defensively, if they're hitting threes, what is the answer for KU offensively if they have to pick it up a little bit? The only thing I can think of is DeJuan Harris becoming, doing what he doesn't like to do. And that's becoming an attacker offensively. I don't know what else is out there for them if it's not that. I mean, I think you can continue to try to run absolutely every possession through Hunter Dickinson and get him to the line 15, 20 times, something ridiculous like that. It's just and I think that's the problem a lot of us have with these opening round games for KU is it's just trying to find, like, if KU does what it wants to do in the game, KU could beat Samford by 20. But what if Samford hits shots, which they're really good at? Then what do you, and I think that's where we have this catch, right? Like, we can't get through that. Well, what are they going to do if Samford does hit shots? Because with McCullough, it's like, well, if Samford's hitting shots, KU should be able to run with them anyway. But without McCullough, man, I don't know. And it's going to be even worse whoever they play in the second round. So I think that's what makes it difficult is if the other team they're playing doesn't hit shots, Paul, if they're not shooting well, KU's fine. They have nothing to worry about. It's that other end of it, though. If they're hitting shots, how does KU counter it? And that's why we don't like to see the matchup, right, of teams that can shoot it, which they have 3 of them, and they'll play potentially 2 of those 3.
Well, the main thing that you're also talking about the effectiveness of Hunter Dickinson and how physical will he be able to be. But it may be that it doesn't really matter because it's obvious to me that other than attacking the basket on dribble drive, that's what Samford's going to try to do. There's no question in my mind. So with that being said, what do? They do the basics. Usually in these kind of situations, whenever somebody says, well, what if this happens? What if this team does that? The answer usually doesn't lie in some sort of stroke of genius in the world of coaching. Usually what it means is that you go back to the basics and you do what you do. Do what you do. And that means you're going to defend, you're going to and trust me, Kansas knows what to do if this team is hitting threes. You're going to see the defense extend. You're going to see offensive players for Samford being picked up a little earlier. You're going to see all positions pressing. Now there comes other problems when that happens too, such as cuts and things like that. And those it opens up things down inside. And if you don't have an effective Hunter Dickinson, that can be problematic too. And then it's another whole set of problems. But right now, KU's number one thing is to slow down Samford and to defend the 3. You do that, and you have a really good chance of winning this thing. Because let's face it, they don't have the thoroughbreds that the University of Kansas does, at least that they used to have, or the healthy ones, or that kind of thing. But you work the University of Kansas into using number 7 in the rotation, 8 in the rotation, and you can win this basketball if you're Samford, and that's what they're counting on.
Yeah, I mean, KU's going to have to get into foul trouble to get deep into the rotation, and they've been good at avoiding that for the most part this year, so I don't worry too much about that. I think they're going to run whoever it is they decide to play, they're going to run them. Like Dickinson, Adams, Harris, and Furphy probably aren't coming off the floor unless it's for a very, very short amount of time or if somebody gets in foul trouble. We haven't talked about that at all. I mean, I think one of the priorities for KU, and if you're Samford, do you try to attack Dickinson to get him off the floor? Or really any player? Because if any of them are if any of those 4 get into foul trouble, KU's screwed. Maybe you attack if you're Samford early. Samford's strategy here will be really interesting because they kind of have to just come out and fire away, don't they, Paul? Like, I don't know that they can afford, because if they don't do that right out of the gates, KU could put the clamps on them pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. I think they kind of have to come out and fire away, which makes me think KU's not going to get in foul trouble. So if that happens, then yeah, whatever the rotation is, it'll be tight. Even if Samford tries to run them to death, they've had how many days off have they had? When did they play? They played
Wednesday.
Last
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
I think it was.
So they're going to have is either Wednesday or Thursday. They're going to have 7 or 8 days off. I don't think you're worried at all in this game about KU running and playing, basically not coming off the floor. Where that becomes a problem is the next game if they win it, Paul, because then now you're on short rest for the first time.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that there is a more interesting And we're obviously interested in it because we follow KU. But even if you looked at all the first round games, is there as strategically interesting a game in the opening round between, a double digit seed or whatever that you can, there's not for me, because the styles of this game and really this game and whatever the next game is will be so interesting to watch for me. I just can't wait for it for that reason. It sucks that McCullers out. I hate that really, really badly. But I am really intrigued to see KU take on this challenge now.
It is, and we don't know what to expect. That's part of the charm of this whole thing. You look at this situation, and I think back into into the Big 12 tournament, and I think to myself, it looked like to me that the University of Kansas was playing, Delta Sigma Pi. That the frat team. I mean, they looked like a team that did not belong in the Big 12. And it's very. By the way, do you mind if I just really quick give you the quotes of with regards to Hunter Dickinson, with regards to Bill Self? He said, Bill Self said yesterday in an interview, he said, Hunt looks great. Practiced basically every day since Sunday. Oh, I'm sorry, Saturday. Non-contact. The last 2 days has been full contact. What do you make of that, Jacob?
That he's going to be fine.
That is
He'll
fine.
be
I thought that might be what you say.
So,
and I think you're right. I think you're right on that.
If you just go back to February 12th and the range of outcomes for Kansas, you've had a game. We've seen them lose a game to Texas Tech by 29 points. We've seen them beat Texas by 19 points. We've seen them beat Kansas State by 22 points. And we've seen them lose to Houston and Cincinnati by 30 and 20 points, respectively. I don't know how you try to predict KU because of that, right?
That's right.
Like, that's
Good
just
point.
They've had those out, and there have been others obviously in there, but just since February 12th, just in the last month, basically, they've had those wide swings of being capable of beating really good teams by 20 and losing to really good teams by 20 to 30. So all of this, I think we just sort of have to watch. I really cannot get my head around it. I think it's very easy to find the glass half empty stuff. You don't even have to try hard. The glass half full, remember that they've got one of the best point guards in the country, which we know matters in the tournament. Remember that they have one of the best, post presences in the country, really times two, in Dickinson and KJ Adams. And that they should be able to defend at a really high level. Like and they have Bill Self on the sidelines. There's a lot of glass half empty too, isn't there, Paul? This is going to be wild to watch. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about K-State falling in the NIT. Just want to, spend a few minutes on what this season. What do we think of this season in retrospect? We'll look at that. On the way out, let's give away some HTO tea and coffee. Hey, Paul.
Yeah.
I think this is one of your favorites. Guess what just launched today? Today.
What's that?
Strawberry Passion Tea.
Oh,
I believe that was one of your
no,
favorites.
that is one of my favorites. My favorite seems to
It's
ship
back.
everyone.
It's back.
I'll tell you what, that
for
was
the
smart
first
of you
time
guys.
in
That was-
more than a year. Strawberry Passion Tea is back at HTO. You can get a free one or any flavor you choose. You can get that and a free coffee now featuring free rain coffee. So a lot of exciting stuff happening.
Right.
You can get one of each from us right now. A free tea, good for HTO in East or West Wichita or in Derby. Or you can get a free coffee, good in Derby or East Wichita. You can do that right now by calling Jad on the KFH hotline, 869-1240. We'll come back, talk a little K-State, the NIT next. Paul, did you stay up overnight to watch the start of the Major League Baseball season?
No, but
Dodgers, Padres.
I saw highlights of it. Well, I'll tell you
Korea.
what, you talk about an excited country, though. Oh my gosh, Korea is just going nuts. I'll tell you what, they love baseball. They love baseball.
Great idea.
Great idea.
I love it. The time change makes it impossible for us.
I got you.
But if you're Major League Baseball, do this every year in different countries. It's a fascinating idea. I love it. Just really, really cool.
Right.
To see the idea of this.
And the scenes that you see, by the way, how much gear are they selling in Korea? I'm talking about Major League Baseball gear.
I mean, look,
it's
there
everywhere.
are the influx of Korean talent to the league.
Oh my gosh,
players that go over there and play is incredible. That's the other thing you're trying to accomplish here.
That is
just grow the sport. But love it. Great idea for baseball. Hope they do more of it. K-State, Paul, last night we were paying attention to, and they get bounced in the first round. It looked like it was going to get out of hand there for a little bit, and they actually played it back pretty close in the second half. I thought it was very respectable effort for K-State. Season's over now. It's a little disappointing. I thought they'd have a chance to make a run in the NIT, but you have to go on the road on a turn like that, a short turn, play Iowa. That's a tough spot. What do we think of this season for K-State? They're disappointed they didn't get into the tournament. They were probably one big win away from getting into the NCAA tournament. It's a team that wasn't going to do anything in the NCAA tournament anyway. So I don't even, whatever. But I actually think it was fine because we never saw Naquan Tomlin play for this team. And if you had told me that we were never going to see Naquan Tomlin play in this season, in a season where we already had, just getting into the NCAA tournament as like a baseline, I don't know that I would call this season disappointing as far as what the team achieved. But I think it's disappointing that we didn't see Naquan Tomlin and the team didn't achieve more because they would have been good enough to make the NCAA tournament. I don't think there's any doubt with Naquan Tomlin there. So I think this will be an interesting turning point potentially for this team, this program, its coach, what his future looks like. For those reasons, this will be a season that is remembered, I think, for K-State.
Well, how much do we love the listeners of this show? We love them so much. You and I watched a lot of this game so that our listeners didn't have to watch that game because it was sort of painful in a lot of times. Now, there was a run. I enjoyed the run. The run was there. There was a run. It didn't work. And then it popped back up to what was the final? It was either 9 or 11 points. I think it was 11-point difference. And I guess the main takeaway that I have is I'm not sure that gosh, I didn't think K-State really wanted to be there. We've always had these conversations about should you go play in a tournament you don't want to be a part of? Should you play in a bowl game that you don't want to be a part of? If you don't want to, Coach Tang, it appeared to me throughout that game, just based upon body language, folded arms, the little things that you look at, it looked like to me that he was uncomfortable in that game, didn't really want to be there, obviously didn't want to go to Iowa City to play that game. And particularly,
they did or they wouldn't have played it. They didn't have to play it.
Well, I'm reading body language. I know they're saying all the right things. All I'm saying is that if you're going to go, because, Iowa won 19, 20 games, something like that. They're a good basketball team.
Similar situation.
But, they're similar situation. But they didn't have the athletes that I thought, at least the athletes that the university or that Kansas State had. The University of Iowa is a good basketball team. Don't get me wrong.
I don't think Kansas State's that athletic this year.
They were more athletic than Iowa, I can tell you that, and still lost by 11.
Paul, they still had to go on the road and play on short rest.
Well, I get that, but that's asking a lot. But I guess that was the difference maker. But what do I read into this? I don't know. I don't know what to read into it. I guess we'll find out.
I think they just got beat last night.
Yeah, they got beat last night, but it was the way they got. It didn't seem to be a fun thing. Basketball playing sports is a thing of joy. Every time you walk out onto a basketball court or a football field, it should be a thing of joy, something celebrated, something that not many people in the world get to do, and you got to go enjoy it. It looked like to me they weren't having fun, and when you don't have fun, you don't play well. And but I think Coach Tang starts looking at other. I think people.
Well, that's the big question. Well, sure, that's the big question, and obviously the beef with President Linton is
doesn't help.
Going to come to the forefront this offseason.
Doesn't help.
That'll be a topic
Yep.
we certainly are paying attention to. We'll come back. Hour number 2.
Right.
We got a lot to get to. I want to get Paul's thoughts on the Chiefs offseason so far. I want to get his thoughts on apparently the cost of dating Taylor Swift, which he sent me this morning, so we can get into that. And we'll continue to look at the NCAA tournament. Any runs to watch? Do we think winner last night, Colorado State has a chance against Texas? I think they probably do. We've got a lot to get to in the second hour, including your calls, 869-1240. Congratulations to Tyler for winning some HTO, some tea, and some coffee. Strawberry Passion is back. By the way, we're speaking a lot about the NCAA tournament. You can listen to those games. We've got Westwood One's coverage of March Madness. It's on the Odyssey app. Easy to find, so check that out. We'll come back, hour number 2, right after this.
Now, from Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht, Paul Savage with you. Hour number 2. We've spent a lot of time speaking on the Kevin McCullough news. That's a tough blow for KU, obviously. By the way, on your way into work, you want to keep listening to Sports Daily even after you park the car. Just pop open the Odyssey app, go to Odyssey.com, download the app, visit Odyssey.com. Just search KFH. You can listen to us live. You can listen to the podcasted versions. Lots of ways to hear the show. Paul, you sent me this morning. We'll take a quick sidebar, have a little fun here.
All right.
You sent me this story. Apparently, there are some reports that it has cost Travis Kelce about $8 million to date Taylor Swift. So, okay, you sent me that, and I'm like, that seems high. A lot of travel, a lot of travel involved.
A lot of jets, I'm guessing.
That.
Don't you? Jets, private jets, a lot.
So after you sent that, and I know this wasn't the intent you sent it with, but after you sent it, because you just saw it pop up somewhere, I searched it, and I'm like, okay, hang on a minute. As soon as I search it, all the cast of characters reporting on this or putting this story out, it aligns well with the type of publications, Paul, let's say, that perhaps aren't big fans of Taylor Swift, mostly for political reasons. But basically, a lot of the same places that dog on this relationship in the first place are reporting this, and those are the only places. So I'm like, okay, and then so I start to look at it. They're counting in there, Paul, like real estate transactions that have been made as a part. And I'm like, now hang on a minute. Travis Kelce makes a real estate decision and that has something to do with this. Like that's a bit of a stretch. Like plane tickets, Super Bowl suites. Okay. But other than that, I think it's being stretched just a little bit, maybe by the Taylor Swift haters. I'll tell you, Paul, it may be one of those things where you got the people trying to goad there, the types of places where you might find somebody egging people on or baiting them into a certain narrative. But as we look at it, because we want to just have fun with it and think of the price tag as being $8 million, who cares, right? Like what does it matter what the price tag is? If you got the money,
right?
Paul, how much, if you had the money, if you had the money, how much would you spend to date the woman of your dreams?
Well,
I mean, probably whatever it takes, right?
Yeah, whatever. You know what? Can you put a price on love? I don't think we can put a price on love at all because, that's just the way I initially thought, and I didn't delve into it, obviously, to the depth you did. But I thought to myself, well, you can drop $250,000 on renting an airplane for a few days. You know what I mean? You can drop a ton of money on plane, private jets. And that's what I thought of. And of course, obviously, my first thought about this article was, I wonder what it took for Jacob Albracht to hook his wife, because she didn't go easy. Your wife is a woman of class, and I know that it took more than your sterling personality to win her over. It had to take thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for you to get her to say yes. And even then, I still think you're probably making payments.
It was funny just to be like an official girlfriend. She didn't say yes the first time I asked her. She was like, no, I don't know about that. So I had to try harder. It's funny, to relate this. Now, I am very fortunate that like the finer things in life, as far as like a Gucci something, like we don't dabble too much into that, and maybe a little bit, but not very much. So I'm lucky there because I don't care about that stuff. But my wife doesn't either. We're more into like spending money on our kids and doing that kind of thing. But I'll tell you, it's funny. So maybe it is equitable. Travis Kelce spending 8 million, even though I think that's a very inflated number if they're trying to count real estate transactions in there. But like Paul, when we first started dating, I mean, I'm working in small market TV. I don't know, making at the time we started dating, probably about $27,000 a year. But living a lifestyle like it took. I'll tell you this way, Paul. It took me a few years into my 30s to get the credit card bill paid off from the life I wanted to live in my 20s. How about that?
Is that right? Very interesting.
It wasn't it wasn't an extravagant life. I just didn't have any money.
Right.
But like I was like, I'm not gonna like I like to go out at night and go eat at restaurants and do all that stuff. I didn't have the money. Put on a credit card, paid off later. That's what I did for a long time.
What the heck did your wife even see in you? If you didn't have money, there's got to be something.
Well, she didn't have any. She worked in local small market TV too. She didn't have any money either. Neither one of us had any money. Like we roughed it like a lot of people in their 20s. Like nobody really has much money in their 20s, right? Unless you are a professional athlete. So I bring that up to say I spared no expense, Paul, to get the woman of my dreams. And so, no, it doesn't surprise me that Travis Kelce spends any amount of money. Who cares? Like, he's got to fly to Australia to see her Eras tour, and he has to, go out after the Oscars or whatever it is. Like, great. They live a different lifestyle than you. Yeah. But if you think about it in the sense of like, for most of us, when you were officially courting your significant other, you probably didn't spare any expense. Now you might now, right? Like, we don't need to spend. But when you were dating, like, no, we're all suckers. We're like, whatever you need, sweetie. Let's just make you happy.
Well, I get your point. And by the way, I'm guessing that something happens matrimonial wise with this couple, particularly Kelce. He's going to have to sign a prenup, not her. Because she literally now Travis Kelce does all right.
He's going to be okay.
He'll be okay.
He'll be fine.
But he is minuscule compared to what Swift is. I mean,
but don't you honestly, Paul? Don't you think that makes it easier? Like, don't you think that makes it a little easier on like Taylor Swift's? Travis Kelce doesn't care about her money. Travis Kelce is going to have more money than he can ever spend. Like, he's got more money than he knows what to do with. And he's going to have a long career in media. Like, he's going to have more. He doesn't care about money.
Well,
don't you think that's got to be a little refreshing? I think sometimes, Paul, that's why. Well, like, it's funny. We see celebrity couples and people would wonder, like, why does that happen? Well, A, sometimes they're in the same industry, so that makes sense. But B, like, I think to not have that hanging over it would be refreshing, don't you? Like, if like, to not have to worry about, like, oh, they're just, Taylor Swift doesn't have to sit there and think, Travis Kelce's dating me for my money or my celebrity. He's a huge celebrity with lots of money. He doesn't care.
Now I will say this though, that one of the falsehoods that's always been perpetuated is that somebody has so much money and somebody says, well, they don't care about money. To the contrary, my friend, I believe that
we all do.
I think that people with money even care more about their money than those that don't have money. Now that's an observation. I can't quantify that, obviously, but to say that a rich person doesn't care about money because they got so much, not so much. Most rich people got rich because they care about their money.
Yeah, and so they do. But athletes and pop stars are probably a little bit different.
Yeah, maybe so. Easy come, easy go.
Than like a business person.
Yeah, but Swift can't. She couldn't spend her money if she tried to. What is she? What do they say she's worth? She's pushing $1 billion,
I don't know,
maybe over $1 billion.
I
mean, and I don't even know how that happens. How do you sing songs and get to be worth billions? See, I
saw her chug a beer. Where were they? I saw her chug a beer was that the Super Bowl? Like, she can chug a beer. She's all right in my book. She's fine. Like, I don't care about all that stuff. So to your original point, it's a funny story because it does bring you to the thoughts of like, well, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Like, none of us spared any expense when we were courting our significant others. Like, that's one of the places where and then I also thought it was funny when you sent me that, and I kind of looked and I'm like, oh, look at the cast of publishers putting this story out. It's all the Taylor Swift haters. Like, if you did a quick search on that, it was like, it was basically the same group that is not on board with this anyway, because they think Taylor Swift has some political agenda for dating Travis Kelce or something. I don't. It's hard to even follow it all. But so that I thought that was also a funny part of that story. It's the Taylor Swift haters trying to dunk on people, but I don't think it surprises people. Or I'm like, you sent me that, and I'm like, yeah, okay.
Well, I learned enough off this story to know that the next time I go out on a date, I'm actually going to buy her a meal instead of make her pay for it.
Yeah, don't split it, Paul. Like, don't go.
I didn't know you're not supposed to. That's what Jad said. I'd asked Jad for dating advice, and I said, Jad, how do I handle my meals with my date? Jad says split it, and if you and maybe if you get lucky, she'll buy it for both of you. And I,
Paul, you're trying to elevate women's rights and show that. She has every right that you do, right? You just want her to split the bill.
You're smart. Yeah. I'm not insulting.
That's how you do that.
I'm not insulting any woman. I can tell you that. So let's just split the bill. I like that thought. I like that.
If you need, like, if you're like, oh God, I don't know if I have enough money to pick that up. You talk about how much you're in the fight for, no, I'm chivalrous. So I'll always offer to pick up the tab when I'm,
good.
Well, and maybe that, I think there's offense taken to that. And maybe that's countering a little bit, but Travis Kelce just trying to take care of his girl. Everybody leave him alone.
Story, wasn't it? I mean, I thought you'd get a kick out of it. I mean, it was a no-brainer. It was just one of those little things you don't see every day. You don't see that kind of sports story every day, do you?
Yeah. Well, it's certainly entered the world of pop culture.
Yes,
on the sports end of it, though.
Yes,
on the sports end of it. Travis Kelce's back next year. Mm-hmm. Everybody's back. Probably not L'Jarius Sneed. Chris Jones is back, though. I think the Hollywood Brown signing could be, for the money and impact, one of the best moves any team has made this offseason. It's been an interesting Chiefs offseason, Paul. What have you made of it? Are you, like, if you had to grade it so far, they got about $15 million in their pocket. They haven't traded away any draft picks yet. They have not completed a very likely trade of L'Jarius Sneed, but they get Chris Jones back. They bring in how would you grade the offseason so far?
Well, getting Chris Jones back, I think we talked about this a month ago or 2 months ago or prior to all this activity starting. I said that was your number one deal. It is so important. He means so much to this football team. And although Mahomes is the most important ingredient in the entire situation for the Kansas City Chiefs, I always thought Chris Jones was going to be right up there. Not quite as important as a quarterback. Obviously, quarterbacks, you can't win without a great one. But, boy, he brings so much to the table. Chris Jones' deal for me is the number one deal. And I might just kind of kick in something else that you might not even be thinking of, and that is the renegotiation of the contract to try to help the Chiefs out with cap space by Patrick Mahomes. And that sent a message. I thought that sent a message to potential players. It sent a message to the team. It sent a message to anybody involved in the front office or within the organization of the Chiefs that I'm a team guy. My priority is winning. I'll do whatever I need to do to help. Now, obviously, he's not giving money away. He's not doing that. He's deferring money. But I'll tell you what, there's a lot of guys that won't defer anything. And Patrick Mahomes deferred, I think wasn't it like 25 million or something like that? I believe it was something like that.
Yeah.
Off of cap space. And that was significant.
He's going to do that every year.
Yeah. And I thought, but I think the Chris Jones is the number one deal. Now, I like the signing of a couple of the receivers. I think they're going to be extremely useful and very helpful in the offense of this team, particularly with a quarterback like Mahomes. I think they were important, but for me, the number one deal is Chris Jones, getting him back in. And if he stays healthy for the next 3 or 4 years, that is money well spent, my friend.
I haven't talked a lot about the Chris Jones deal. I'm
if he's healthy,
I'm okay with it.
If he's healthy.
Well, it just is
I'm glad
at
you're
the age
okay
where
with
it's
it. It's a big deal.
No,
what he does is a big deal.
He's incredible, Paul.
He is incredible. Thank you.
What's interesting is they weren't willing to do well. One side wasn't willing to do basically this deal last year when he was a year younger. So what's changed?
I don't.
It's interesting.
It is,
maybe this was the deal the Chiefs had in place then, and Chris Jones has softened, and that would probably make me like the deal a whole bunch. it's hard for me to imagine the Chiefs coming up and now being willing to pay Chris Jones what he wanted when they weren't last year. So my guess is he has softened, and that makes me like it a little bit more. But there is a lot of risk involved in that deal, a lot, because of his age. That's it, his age, and he played a little hurt this year, and we know he played through it, and that matters. I think what it tells us as much as anything, Paul, is the emphasis the Chiefs are putting on winning this third straight Super Bowl. It would have been easy for the Chiefs to say, no, we've got to stretch the window out a little bit. We have to, make sure we're in good shape in other places for the long term. But I think the Chris Jones deal tells us more than anything else that they are putting and of course they're putting an emphasis on winning the Super Bowl next year. I'm not naive that they're always doing that, but maybe more so than, let's say, if they didn't win the Super Bowl last year. Like, there is a big emphasis, is what it tells me, for them to win right now. This one maybe more than others in the past, however you want to frame it. They know they don't have Andy Reid forever. They know they don't have Travis Kelce forever. They know they don't have Chris Jones forever. So it's almost like you kind of push it all in the short term. And they're fortunate. They're going to have a long window no matter how long, basically for however long Patrick Mahomes plays. But it does seem like they're sort of pushing it all in there this year. You add Hollywood Brown, that's going to be a great deal. And what that makes me wonder, too, is with a little cash in their pocket, how aggressive will they be to bring in, some more players somehow to really build it up and go all in this year, even if it hurts you maybe 1 or 2 years, down the road to get that third straight Super Bowl. That's an exciting thing probably for fans to see what else they can do with the roster. They've got money. They've got a first-round pick. How do they utilize that now? I think it's interesting, but I think they'll be aggressive. And look, all the big names are sort of, I don't know that there are a lot of big names left in free agency, but that doesn't mean they can't make a trade, Paul, which they love to do. I wondered yesterday, I will not be surprised if the Chiefs go very aggressive in the draft and move up to take a tackle. If there is a tackle that they like that is beginning to slip, I think you're going to see them get pretty aggressive to go up and take it. They've been trying to solve that position for years and years. They can't get it solved. They've tried to bring in right tackles and make them left tackles. That hasn't worked. I wouldn't be surprised, Paul, if that's what they end up doing with this draft, is moving up in it to go get that left tackle that they hope can be that position for a long time. And I'm good with it, quite frankly, Paul, because they've done a really good job drafting linemen recently. Mm-hmm. So if they identify somebody that way and they want to spend the resources it takes to move up and get them, I think that's as good as any that they could use that first-round pick on.
Well, you've identified an Achilles heel that needs to be fixed, and I can't begin to tell you how sick and tired I am of watching offensive linemen help Patrick Mahomes up. I'm sick and tired of watching that hand extend out and pull Patrick Mahomes off the ground. And I'm tired of offensive linemen doing that. And I think you've identified exactly what one of the basic problems could be. The idea that this is a team that is set is far from the truth. And everybody else, of course, is shooting for the Chiefs. And what is your main asset with regards to players within the Kansas City Chiefs ranks? And that's Patrick Mahomes. You got to do whatever it takes to get him to where he can be as good as he can be, to take this team where it can go. This team can win a third and a fourth and a fifth Super Bowl if Patrick Mahomes stays upright. And so I think you're onto something there. That's exactly where I might be tempted to go if I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, and that is you find and it may be that it's more than one offensive lineman. It might be several offensive. You might see several.
Yeah, I mean, they can
along the way.
So Wanya Morris is there. We talked about this. Tommy didn't like the idea because he didn't trust a left tackle protecting Mahomes' blind side.
I don't.
I think it's a position that players can transition to well. First year tackles are more likely to find success maybe than, let's say, a first-year tight end or a first-year quarterback even. So I think it's possible. Wanya Morris is a bit of a backup plan, but I also don't know that the Chiefs want to roll into next year with Wanya Morris as their starting left tackle, even if they take somebody in the first round. So I could definitely see them, you could always bring Donovan Smith back and take a left tackle, and then you have Wanya Morris there as depth. I think there's a lot of ways to do it. I just, with the signing of Hollywood Brown and bringing Chris Jones back, like what else do they need to do in the first round? They can always sit where they're sitting and take the best available player, which is never a bad idea in the NFL. But I think they've got the ability to be flexible here. And I do think in a class where I'm watching mock draft things like right now, you've got some people think 5 quarterbacks are going in the top 12. And then you've got the 3 wide receivers in that mix too. That's 8 players, Paul, that might push a tackle further down the board than in normal years. And if you're talking about an elite level tackle, and I'm not going to sit here and try and grade offensive linemen. I don't do that. I don't have that time anymore. But if they sit there and they love one of these guys, and all of a sudden it's the, 10th, 11th, 12th pick, and that guy's falling down the board, don't you think this is the kind of year where you go be aggressive there?
Right.
I do. I think it is.
And you hit it on the head. There is the possibility that 4 quarterbacks could go within the first 12 to 15
5
picks.
now. People are talking about 5.
Who's the 5th one?
J.J. McCarthy.
Oh, okay.
Bo Nix.
That's
and
right.
And then the other 3 that everybody likes a whole lot.
And here's the thing. When you're that heavy on quarterbacks, players are going to get shoved down the line. But I was listening.
And you have those receivers. We got a loaded Neighbors, Dunze.
They're saying there could
Harrison Jr.
8 to 10 receivers going in the first round. I don't know if that's
could
a fact.
push.
That's a lot.
That could push them to, and I don't know that they're the elite level pass rushers people typically see. So I don't know how this will play out. Man, I know that if there's an opportunity, and again, it only matters if the Chiefs have to love the player, right? It's not, you just don't do it to do it. You do it if you love the player. They've shown in the past, if they love the player, they'll go get him. Yeah. And they did it with Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
In a spot nobody expected.
That's right. That's exactly
right. Like it was like the Chiefs are trading up to take Patrick Mahomes. What? Yeah. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. Gotcha.
They may go get a left tackle still in free agency,
right?
But then also be ultra aggressive and go draft one too. Because it's not like they can't use a right tackle either. Juwan Taylor wasn't outstanding last year.
That's right.
We'll come back. We'll get back into the college hoops when we return on Sports Daily.
Welcome back to Sports Daily right here on KFH Radio. I'm Paul Savage, joined alongside Jacob Albracht on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon right in front of the NCAA basketball tournament, which everybody's looking forward. Just a little side note, tomorrow this show will be on the road. We'll be at Kansas Star Casino right in front of the sportsbook that is located, I believe, on the northern edge of the casino floor, if I have my directions correct. We're looking forward to that. Tommy Castor and myself will be broadcasting live. Come down to the casino and say hi to us. The Kansas Star is a great place to be. It's great food.
Jealous, Paul.
You know, you are jealous. I've been sensing the fact that you are jealous that you're not going with me and Tommy. I have sensed that. I have felt that. You have now confessed. Confession is good for the soul. But, boy, I'll tell you what, Jacob, we are looking forward to going down there for this tournament, and it's going to be so much fun. And Kansas Star is a great place to go and have some fun and dine. It's a wonderful place. So thank you to the Kansas Star Casino for having Tommy and I down to do this show Thursday and Friday. Of course, 9 to 11, we'll be there. Come by and say hi to us.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a good time. I cannot wait for. Have you been to the sportsbook down there yet, Paul?
No, I have not.
It's awesome. It's great. It's great. You'll love it. It's a perfect place to watch tournament games go by. Tell Tommy and Paul hello and know that I'll be jealous that I'm not going to be there.
There you go.
Paul, we got the men's tournament there. The women's tournament getting ready to get underway Friday and Saturday. We got K-State at home taking on Portland. Potential second weekend matchup for them against Iowa, which is really fun and interesting. And KU, they got to go out to LA and take on Michigan and then potentially USC, but a lot of local flair in that women's tournament. You've got teams like Iowa State in it featuring a ton of local talent. It's going to be as interesting and as good a women's tournament overall as far as like local interest, I think, that I've had in my decade here in Kansas. Well, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, well, part of that's the Caitlin Clark effect on all women. That's part of it. Of course, with the women's basketball tournament, we understand that there's differences in programs at the higher level and the lower level in the first couple of days. Scores will be, you're not going to see a lot of overtime games if you get my drift. There's going to be a lot of scores that are one-sided, lopsided.
Early on,
early in the tournament, a lot more than on the men's side, that's for sure. You'll probably see a lot less, upsets, a one getting beaten by 16. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But the one thing that I have thought to myself as I have looked a little bit at the brackets and studied the brackets a little bit, just trying to be informed on the thing. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, what is the committee thinking? And what I'm referenced to is that the selection committee decided to put LSU and Iowa in the same in the same subset. And that is Albany. I believe it's Albany 2. And they'll be playing Iowa and LSU, I thought might play for a national championship in the finals. But no, nobody, only one of those two teams is going to make it to the Final Four. And I thought to myself, what's the committee doing? What in the heck's going on? Why would LSU and Iowa be in the same division? I do not get it, Jacob. You're going to have to help me out here.
First of all, South Carolina is the heavy favorite.
Yeah, but you want
to win this thing.
But you get my point.
LSU want that rematch.
LSU,
because you want that rematch after that heat last year.
Yeah, but LSU and Iowa have the two top female players in the country. Now, I'm not taking away from Juju at USC.
Or Ayoka Lee at Kansas State.
I'm not going to do that. They're excellent players. But, of course, Reese and Clark are the two, I guess, the ones that have gotten most of the publicity through the year, driven their teams. Been interesting to see what's going on with these young ladies, watching them progress through the season, particularly with Reese. She's had her ups and downs. There's no question about that with regards to this basketball season. But I just don't understand why the committee would put them both in the same division, and then and only one of those two teams going to go to the Final Four. I was thinking to myself,
because you want them to play. Number one, I mean, I want to see them play as much as anything.
Well,
but hey,
they were going to play in the finals. I don't think there's anybody in the country that will beat either one of those teams, if you ask me, other than South Carolina. Granted, South Carolina is good, but South Carolina is on the western side of the brackets, and they're going to end up in the finals. But I just thought to myself, I would love to see LSU and Iowa in the Final Four, and that's not going to happen. Just one of those two teams are going to end up being in the finals. I think that's a shame.
You're discounting. I think you may be overlooking Kansas State a little bit.
Well,
Paul.
of course I am, because LSU and Iowa is what we've heard all year long. Iowa, LSU. That's all we've heard.
I'm going to remind you.
Other than South Carolina.
I'm going to remind you real quick.
All right.
Real quick. Just a quick reminder.
Please.
Kansas State beat Iowa in Iowa City.
But who's gotten the most publicity? I mean, have you ever seen a women's basketball team get more publicity?
No, because of Caitlin Clark.
That's right.
Okay, so K-State's had this weird thing where they've played them twice, and they beat them the first time in Iowa City. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then they lost by 7 in a neutral game a little less than a month later.
Right. Well,
like 10 days later.
I'm just saying that this has been and by the way, Caitlin Clark has driven this for many of us.
Sure. So has Angel Reese. They're the two stars.
So has Angel Reese. So with those two.
Don't, though, just put in Iowa on through the tournament.
Well,
they got to get through K-State.
Well, I have them in the Final Four.
I'm sure
and
most do, but then again, I'm not sure. Fully healthy, K-State beat them and played them within 7 the second time.
Right.
Beat them in a true road game.
Right. I just don't want them in the same regional now that, they're both in the same regional. And
it's not going to matter because K-State's going to beat them. How about that, Paul?
Wow. Well, you've cleared this up for me. I'm almost sorry I brought it up. And Jad's over here laughing at me now. Now you got Jad making fun of me.
Iowa will be favored in that. Iowa will be favored in that game. I understand what you're saying. I guess for me, like, I would rather know that I'm going to get to see those two go head to head than not. So if they play a little earlier than that, I'm good with it. I have not studied the resume of LSU or Iowa, quite frankly, to know, as far as like seeding, if they were over or under seeded or anything like that. So I won't chime in too much on that because I just don't know. But I would like to see those two play each other. But Iowa's going to have its hands full with K-State. Yeah. And K-State already knows they can beat them. If K-State's fully healthy and ready to go, watch out.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. And how about that too? Like, you want to talk about a big stage, right? Can you imagine if that's what the Sweet 16 matchup is? K-State, Iowa, everybody's going to be watching that game. Caitlin Clark in the NCAA tournament.
Wow,
that's a big opportunity for K-State.
It would be, and I don't know how that's going to handle. I just don't know how that's going to figure. I do know this. Caitlin Clark's driving everything. By the way,
remember,
nice little commercial with State Farm last night. And the State Farm guy.
Remember,
go ahead.
That K-State beat Iowa at Iowa this year. Just remember that.
Okay.
K-State would be a 1 or 2 seed, I think, had Ayoka Lee not gotten hurt. So
that's possible. That is very
they're
possible.
The 4 seed. I can guarantee you they're the 4 seed nobody wants to see.
Right. Well, that's
if they're healthy. If they're healthy. All right. And we'll get with you guys. Ask Fitz about that tomorrow too, because I haven't looked and seen a good health update. Get an update on the K-State women's health tomorrow.
I specifically will do that with K-State women. I will do that. I promise.
All right. When we come back, I want to, because I don't get to join in on the fun out at FanDuel, at the sportsbook Thursday and Friday. Paul, do you have your Final Four ready? Have you filled out your bracket?
I'm partway through it. I haven't, I've still got
hit me with your rough draft Final Four. You would.
My Final Four
when we come back, because I have now that we have the injury update on Kansas, I have finished mine off.
All right.
So
let me
hit me with your Final Four.
Let me get it off my phone. I'll get it to you. Gotcha. All righty.
All right. 869-1240. You can give us yours, too. Call in. Let us know what you think the Final Four is going to be. Who's your champion as well. We're all trying to fill out our brackets. Any tidbits are good. Throw them in the trash on day 3 usually, but we'll give it a whirl anyway. We'll come back. More Sports Daily right after this.
97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Jacob Albracht, Paul Savage with you today. It's tournament time, Paul. Before I get to your Final Four, which I want, what'd you think of Virginia last night? So Virginia comes out, lays an egg, does what Virginia does, doesn't score any points. It's as brutal style of basketball as there is for most of us. Most of us wanted Indiana State, which had a high octane, really fun player. They had a great year. Thought they should have been in over Virginia last night. Certainly proved that they should have been. Virginia is interesting, Paul. Remember, they have their national championship in 2019. Other than that, though, so since 2018, which was the year they were the one that lost to the 16, and then they come back the next year and win the title. Since then, they've lost their first game 3 out of 4 years, and the 4th year they didn't get into the NCAA tournament. Virginia is fascinating. That style is brutal. Nobody wanted to see Virginia in this tournament outside of Virginia fans, did they, Paul? And it proved why last night.
Well, I just hate to say it this way, but Virginia stunk. I mean, that was probably one of the least entertaining basketball games I've watched in a while. And I've watched a lot of basketball this season, but that one was hard to watch. But I watched enough of it to know that I didn't want to see any more of Virginia. I'm glad they got. It wasn't even close. It wasn't competitive. It wasn't any of the descriptions that you want to use. I'm with you, and it's like they didn't want to be there. I don't understand those kind of situations, but it stunk and it was hard to watch.
It's done now.
It's done.
I really wish Indiana.
Goodbye.
I really wish Indiana State would have made it in.
Well, they certainly deserved it over. I'll tell you,
neither one of them were going to end up in your Final Four, though, Paul, and that's where we want to go next. So our Final Fours, I'm there with it. Let's start inside and go out. Who's your national champion?
Right now, I got Houston. When they're playing good defense, baby, they're hard to beat. They're hard to beat. And
they're always playing good defense too. So I get it.
Well, they have their moments. They had their moments, in fact, in the tournament where they didn't play quite as good. But let me put it this way: on a big stage, they're going to play. They're going to play great defense, and championships are won with great defense. And Houston is good as anybody. And I've got Houston as the eventual national championship. Now I know that's going out on a limb, right? I mean, they're a number 1 seed, and they're 30-4 for goodness sakes. And that's really going out on a limb. But I've got a reason why I think they're going to win the national championship, and that's defense. They are fun to watch. I know one thing. I'm memorized by the way they play defense, and it's just fascinating to watch these kids. Rarely do you see kids get mad at themselves if they have a screw up on defense. I mean, you see kids show disgust when they miss a 3 or something like that. But man, when a kid on the University of Houston has a kid blow by him, or he gets beat on defense, or the kid gets a good look and a good shot that goes in, those kids are mad at themselves. And I'll tell you what, that's refreshing. And that is my reason why I'm picking Houston to win it all, defense.
Okay. I've got Houston in my championship game. So I've also got them to the Final Four. I have them losing to Illinois. I'm going to take Illinois as my champion.
Wow. I didn't see that coming. I mean, they're good, but I mean.
Now remember, too, when I do brackets like this, I'm trying to win brackets, right? I'm trying to win these things. To take UConn makes it harder to win a bracket because most people will take UConn. And I do think UConn has landmines all over their region is brutal, if you ask me. Hardest by far. So I'm going to take Illinois. I'm going to take them over Houston. My other 2 Final Four teams are Arizona, winning the West region, and Creighton, winning the Midwest region. Creighton. Who else is in your Final Four, Paul?
Well, something, I looked at Creighton, and initially I was thinking that I might take Creighton, but I thought, well, I'd be the only one that did it. But right now,
they're 3 seed. They're a 3 seed. I've got people taking them.
Yeah, I've got Tennessee. I've got Tennessee in the Midwest.
Okay.
All right. Can I be a bit of a homer? Is that legal on this show?
Do it.
Baylor in the West.
Heck yeah. You know what, Paul? I'll tell you. I really struggled with Baylor. If I didn't put Arizona in because they play in the Sweet 16, I was going to take Baylor. So I don't think that's crazy at all. I like it, in fact.
And my other Final Four team, and here again, I'm going to go to the fact that defense wins championships. I got Iowa State going to the Final Four.
I love it. So before I've told this to our listeners here. I like to when I'm thinking about brackets before Selection Sunday, before the region, I like to say this would be my Final Four, right? If there weren't any, regional implications, and I would have had Illinois, Iowa State, UConn, and Houston. Well, it just so happens that Illinois, Iowa State, and UConn are all in the same region, so I can only take one, and I'll take Illinois.
Right.
But I'm with you. I love Iowa State. I think they have a real chance to make a run.
And what's more,
I think, in fact, that region. I mean, you've got there's so many good teams, and Auburn's in that region too, Paul. Auburn, and think about this for UConn. If UConn wins this title, they will have had to go through probably Florida Atlantic, who was in the Final Four last year and returned everybody, either San Diego State, who was also in the Final Four last year, or Auburn, who may be the hottest team in basketball, then likely either Illinois or Iowa State. I mean, that path for UConn is rough.
Oh,
rough.
of course.
So I like it.
Well, the
State.
irony is, Jacob, and I know it's not lost on you, is I've got 3 Big 12 teams in the Final Four.
Who do you have play in Houston, by the way? Who do you have? Baylor, Iowa State. Who do you have there?
Well,
playing in the championship game.
Against
Houston.
I've got Iowa State in the championship game.
I've
got Iowa State playing Houston for a national championship.
That'd be cool.
And you want to know something?
Cool to see the Big
that
12.
could happen. And I'll tell you what, the score will be like 58-56.
So let's go to the second weekend, though. Let's go to the Sweet 16. Do you have any crazies? So in my Sweet 16 right now, I've got Mississippi State in there, which would have to get past North Carolina to do that. I like it when I'm filling out a bracket because I think that you could swap either Mississippi State or Michigan State. I think either one of those teams can beat North Carolina, and I think they will. I'm just looking at my crazies. I am gonna with the McCullough news. I'm gonna put McNeese State in there. I'm gonna put McNeese State in that Sweet 16.
Yeah, I've got him
James
too.
James Madison. I would say that's my riskiest one. And that's the one I'm really struggling with because I don't love their matchup with Wisconsin. Wisconsin, who's a great tournament team always, who's playing well late. I'm with everybody else. I like James Madison. The thing that makes it hard to put them in the Sweet 16 for me is they could so easily lose in the first round. But I'm going to put them in there.
Yeah.
And then I've got, the Boise State Colorado winner tonight is my other double-digit seed on to the Sweet 16.
Well, Colorado State.
Other
really
than that,
good. Yeah.
Other than that, I've got not Colorado, and I'm going to take Texas in the Colorado State game. I'm talking about the game tonight. The winner of Boise State, Colorado.
Oh, Colorado. Okay,
I'm going to have beating both Florida and Marquette.
Right.
Whoever wins that game tonight, because I really like both of them.
Right. My crazy, which obviously I guess it's not so crazy. I got McNeese State going to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, so do I.
Getting beat by Purdue. I've got them beat by Purdue.
I didn't want to take Purdue. I've got Purdue to the Elite Eight too. I didn't want to take Purdue to the Elite Eight. I wanted to have Kansas beat Purdue.
Well, that's not.
It's just
they may not even beat Sanford.
Healthy kid. That's the problem now without McCullough. It's like I can't do that in a bracket anymore because there's too much risk on Kansas in those first 2 games. But are you telling me you don't think Kansas matches up well with Purdue? Dickinson on Edey, like stylistically? Like, I don't hate that at all for Kansas.
Quick question. How many people don't follow basketball very closely have Kansas as the winner for the first 2 rounds?
I'll
bet a bunch.
A bunch. Yeah, yes. For sure. For the first 2 rounds? Oh, yeah. I mean, it's hard not to take them in the first 2 rounds. Taking McNeese over Kansas is still a stretch, but we just know Kansas so well that the chances of Kansas losing in the first 2 rounds seem higher than normal.
It does.
To the untrained eye, maybe not, but for us, just based on style, we know the challenges that lay ahead for Kansas.
Correct.
There's no doubt about that.
No, that's correct.
All right, we'll come back. We'll tell you what's on the network today.
That means one thing. Dandelions are coming. Don't let those annoying yellow weeds invade your lawn again. This year, trust your lawn to Ryan Lawn and Tree. This is Larry Ryan. No other lawn care company delivers the results that Ryan Lawn and Tree delivers. More than just providing a beautiful dandelion-free lawn. Your trusted pros in the clean red trucks make sure your entire landscape is healthy, strong, and ready to look great no matter what nature throws at it. And unlike the other guys, the pros at Ryan Lawn and Tree are employee owners, full-time professionals going above and beyond every day with 5-star customer service. Call us or click ryanlawn.com today. And as a new customer, you'll save 50% on your first lawn application. Enjoy a worry-free, effort-free, dandelion-free lawn this year with Ryan Lawn and Tree.
Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tournament. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. When filling out your bracket, always look out for those number 12 seeds over number 5s in the first round, and always exercise caution when betting on the perpetually disappointing Big Ten. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/Lutz. That's FanDuel.com/LUTZ and bet on college hoops until they cut down the net. 21 plus and present in Kansas. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is not withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com.
Tax season is here. Are your forms, calculations, and stress piling up? Take charge of your tax situation today by going with Market Tax Services. Our team of CPAs and enrolled agents are ready to help you manage your documents, returns, deductions, and more at our downtown or West Wichita offices for your convenience. Market Tax Services is here for all your tax needs. We look forward to meeting with you. Call us today at 316-803-1040 or learn more at markettaxservices.com.
Texting enrolls you in a recurring automated marketing text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
The team's looking good this season.
I think so. Man, I miss playing football. Being young with unlimited energy to burn. Ever since I turned 40, I just can't find that fire I used to have.
Think you could be lower testosterone?
What do you mean?
All guys lose their edge when they turn 40. The body has less testosterone. That's why I take Nugenix Total T.
I've heard about Nugenix. That really works?
Since I started taking Nugenix, I'm lifting like when we played for Coach Carter. I feel more energized at work. It's even spiced up things between me and the missus.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try?
Yep, send a text. It's that easy.
Text HATCH to 42424 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T. It's the #1 selling testosterone boosting brand at GNC and Walmart. Do it now and they'll also send you a bottle of Nugenix Thermo X, their newest, most powerful fat burner ever, absolutely free. Text HATCH to 42424. That's HATCH to 42424. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
The KFH Studios, powered by Devon James Injury Lawyers. Call 888-8888. That's 888-8888.
College men's basketball action last night. The first round of the NIT. Kansas State on the road at Iowa. The Wildcats had trouble stopping the Hawkeyes. Iowa wins the game 91-82. After the game, the play-by-play voice of the Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson, spoke with head coach Jerome Tang.
Just a great start to this ball game for Peyton Sanford, coach. He had 17 points in what seemed like just a matter of seconds, and it felt like you're just battling uphill all night long.
Credit to Iowa and Fran and his team, and they came ready to play. And that young fella, the scouting report was that he was their Caitlin Clark. Yeah, right, and. He looked every bit of it, right?
Yeah. Kansas State shot 64% from the field, but missed 22 three-pointers and 8 free throws. And Kansas State, 9 straight road losses. Came to a point where they couldn't win on the road, finishing the year with a record of 19-15. I'm Ted, the Sports Head.
Coming up on a Thursday on Sports Daily, we will recap everything from the first games of both the Big 12 tournament and the American Conference tournament for Wichita State, K-State, and KU. Will they move on? Will they go home? We'll talk about all of that on a Thursday edition of Sports Daily. Also, our K-State insider Tim Fitzgerald will join us. It's all coming up on a Thursday edition of Sports Daily on KFH.
Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, everybody, that's it. Paul, glad to be with you this morning.
Yeah, sorry you can't join us at the Kansas Casino. But come down and see Tommy and I. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast.
Yeah.
By the way, we're going to get you some of our best bets. I will have some of my best bets out there. Tommy and Paul will have those. I'm going to put those together tonight for both Thursday and Friday. So stay tuned for that tomorrow. You guys enjoy it. Have a blast. Jad, thanks for running the ship. Congratulations, by the way, to Tyler for winning the HTO. We'll be back tomorrow with more Sports Daily. See you then.
Sports, lighter news, and great comedy with Bob and Tom Morning.